Dreams are the language of our unconscious. And I love working with dreams because basically they're like free therapy. Most of us dream every night. And amongst the many things that dreams and the act of dreaming is good for, it's basically a way for our unconscious to send information to our conscious mind about things that we're ready to integrate, ready to resolve, ready to work through, or that need our attention. So, dreams can also help us, for instance, rebuilding neural pathways. They can help us balance our psyche and mind, our psyche and our body. They can help us clear the things that happen throughout the day or the week. This is why many times we dream about things or elements that, that appeared in our day. And they can even help us access different realities. But then this happens regardless of whether we remember our dreams or not. Though if we don't remember our dreams, if we don't make a conscious effort of kind of giving our dreams value and start to understand what our dream language is, we are missing out on a big part of the integration process, because for all the information from the unconscious to bridge to a conscious mind and it to actually have an impact on our lives, on our daily lives, for it to change our thought patterns, to change our bodies, there has to be also a conscious awareness of the things that that we're working through. And to give you sort of an example of the process of this happening, you've probably at some point seen this iceberg image about our conscious and our unconscious. If you haven't, you can just Google it. But basically, we have our conscious mind, we have the subconscious, and then the unconscious. And the unconscious can be separated in many different kind of categories. We have the personal unconscious, we can have the collective unconscious, and that can also be separated into, or kind of grouped or classified into our family unconscious, our gender unconscious, our country's unconscious, etc. But let's work with these three levels, like the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. So the conscious is basically what we normally identify with, the information that we live by, the things that that are easily accessible to us, the things that we believe about ourselves, the things that we've deemed virtuous or non-virtuous, etc. The subconscious is kind of the bridge or the filter between the conscious and the unconscious. And you could think about it, the subconscious or the information stored there, as kind of like the guidelines, the stories you learned, the parameters that you have had throughout your life that make you, either think this way or this other way about a certain thing. It's kind of your compass as to, what makes you a good person or what makes you somebody else a bad person, your moral guidelines, your ethics, etc. And in the unconscious, this vast space of the unconscious, we have all the information from all our life. So, it's a really great, mechanism that our bodies have of not having like direct access to this whole information, because it'd be super tiring to be constantly process all that information. And throughout our lives, we start building bridges, so we don't have to think about every single step and every single thing we know, for instance, about our mother or about a table or, about certain things. So it is quite, a really fantastic mechanism. If we don't update it though, that's when we start having a problem, because we start living through or by values and thought patterns that, that we might have had at a certain point in our lives because they served us well then, but not necessarily will they apply to our reality today. And we'll get too much into that today because we're talking about dreams. But that's kind of a little bit of what happens. So with dreams, we have all this information in the unconscious, and as we go through life, we experience things that, and this of course, is, we're all in a process of growth, in individuation in psychology. But even if you're not aware of it, you're in that path. But if you're consciously in that path, this everything that happens to us, everything that we notice in life is an opportunity for growing, for understanding something, for being a better person, for integrating things. And all of this comes from our own conscious. And bear in mind that all of these layers, they're all accessible to us. It's all ourselves. We're separating them now, but they are all part of who we are. So this whole information that's in the unconscious is, every time we dream, it's kind of like we're accessing things from this pool of information and we're bringing them to the conscious. They do go through the filter of the subconscious, and the subconscious kind of says like, okay, yeah, like, okay, we want to work through this, but if you bring it like this, it's way too, too big or too difficult to understand, so let's tone it down. And dreams are produced, dreams that, that we can, I don't know, kind of have a soothe access into. If that filter of the subconscious gets bypassed, which happens sometimes, then we have nightmares. I'm not going to get into nightmares that much, but nightmares are also an amazing opportunity to really look at like deep issues that we have that, that we call our shadow, or that are, information that comes from something that, that is at the core of the foundation of who we are, and information that can help us grow in a deep way. So a dream happens, the unconscious sends information, it gets processed or bypassed by the subconscious, and it lands in the conscious in the form of a dream. Now, if you have dreamt before, remember a dream that you have had, you have probably experienced that the way in which dreams are narrated, or the way in which they happen, is not, it's not in a linear way. It's not in the way in which we normally tell stories or read a book. They, they happen in a circular way, in a spiral way, in linear ways. And, they can jump between space, time, certain characters in our dreams, they can change. And so this happens because let's say the language of the dreams, the language of the unconscious happens in the form of symbols. It doesn't happen in the form of words, for instance. So, and basically symbols are patterns of energy and consciousness. And what this means is that they are basically this thing that contains a lot of information. So every time we look at something, or we're working with a symbol, it's very complex information that that we might not. It's not the same thing as looking at an image. And a really beautiful thing about starting to understand symbols and working with symbols is that every symbol in your dream contains the whole information of the whole dream. We say that dreams are holographic. So even if you don't remember all the dreams you had during the night, or you don't remember every single detail of the dream, it doesn't matter, because you can just take one of the symbols and work with that symbol to understand, or kind of like extract the meaning of the whole dream, which is quite beautiful. And another really great thing about symbols is that, or about dreams and symbols within dreams, is that every single element in our dream is speaking about ourselves. Yeah, we humans love to talk about ourselves. We're super self-obsessed. And even if you dream of, a character that resembles your mother, or, a friend, or, it's a flower, it is going to contain information about yourself. And all of this is to say that basically in the dream you have a plethora of information about ways in which you could grow, transform, information for how to get unstuck with certain things, or how to integrate something else. So they're really, really beautiful tools to have. And I'm gonna talk to you about one of the ways in which we can work with dreams, or how to kind of start to understand them and start to become familiar with the meaning of your personal symbols. Because also it's important to say that we all, even if 3 people dreamt with, I don't know, let's say the ocean, it's going to mean something a little bit different for each person. So I don't really believe in dream dictionaries, for instance. So what do we do to work with a dream? You went to sleep, you had a dream, and you wake up, and let's for now think that you're somebody who remembers your dreams. This can be done as soon as you wake up if you fear that you're going to forget it, as the day passes, but you can also work with a dream, that you had last week or something. And what we do is, the first thing is to recount the dream in first person present. So instead of saying, for instance, I dreamt that I was in a prairie full of red flowers and then I encountered a raccoon. Instead of saying it in the past tense, you say, I am in a prairie full of red flowers and I look to my right and there's a raccoon. So basically you kind of traverse or walk through the dream in first person present. And if you're in a space where you can actually move around, you can do so. You could even use elements from the space in which you are to kind of, symbolize the red flowers, the raccoon, etc. So you narrate your dream to yourself, for instance. And the next step that we want to do is identify the kind of like the relevant characters or the relevant items. And how do we do this? I mean, if you only remember, an element of your dream, or you just kind of recall it, a color, you can work with that. But let's say you have an immense amount of detail in your dream. So what you do is you're going to pick three elements. And how do you pick them? They're just gonna pop up. If you recounted your dream and maybe there's, like you're really drawn to the red of the flowers for some reason, there's no explanation, but you're really drawn to the red of the flowers. Or maybe it's the tail of the raccoon or the raccoon itself. Or maybe you found out, while you were narrating the dream, that there was actually this very sticky table, in the back. Those elements are going to stick out, and once you've identified them, what we're going to do is have a sort of a gestalt dialogue with the parts to clarify them. That's how we refer to this process. So how this looks like is, let's say it's the red flower that I'm going to explore. So I walk to the red flower, and the first thing I want to do is kind of sense what it makes me feel. So I stand, if I'm walking around the room exploring, I stand in front of this red flower and I observe, what happens to my body. Am I feeling afraid of the red flower? Do I feel drawn to it? Is it causing, an inquisitive sensation? Anything, just register it. And then you want to start asking questions to the flower. I know, it's actually a lot of fun. And what you want to do, or the intention of asking questions to the flower, is to clarify what this flower wants to say or what it symbolizes. We basically want to understand, something. So, we can ask things like, what are you symbolizing in my dream? What is it that you want to tell me? If there's something very clear in your mind, I don't know, about a specific issue, do you have anything to tell me about this issue that I could learn from? Things like that. And then what you want to do, once you've asked the questions, you physically, change sides and you go to the space of the flower. If you're doing it walking around, if you're doing it in your, in your space, just imagine, visualize that you switch places with the flower and you're basically going to respond as the flower. So all the questions that you ask the flower, you're going to respond as the flower. And you can do this as many times as you need until you get an insight, until you understand, what it is that the flower wants to say or what it is that it's symbolizing. And once you are done with that, you can go and explore the other elements that you identified. And now it can also happen that once you're doing that, as I mentioned with the hypothetical table, just other elements arise, and it's okay to explore these new elements even if you didn't remember them from the dream. And it can also happen that once you've talked to the other elements and clarified them, maybe there's a new question you had for another element. So you can do that and you start exploring them. And basically what we are doing is identifying the parts of this, in this case, this dream, which is trying to tell us something, and clarifying what they mean to us or what they want to tell us. And usually what happens when you start exploring the dream is that at some point there's going to be a natural integration, because you've gained insight, you have understood what this means to you in this particular moment of your life. And usually when this integration happens, it happens in the form of, it can happen in many ways. Just don't take this as, the only way that it can happen, but it's usually in the form of, it feels good, it gives you a sense of lightness, of expansion. Maybe it's in the form of light. Maybe it's, like you find out that, that over there in the distance, there's a beautiful sun, or something that feels, like something is opening, that something is expanding. And when this happens, you can allow yourself to kind of just be in that, in that space of feeling, calm, expanded, and allow for everything to just kind of, dissolve or integrate in, in your body, this whole experience of the dream. And, it can also happen that you don't have that, that very clear process of integration, and that's also okay. And this usually happens when, when either we're working through a very complex issue, or maybe it's, it's related to some trauma that we have, and we might need, more sessions or more dreams even. Maybe this is just a part of something in our journey. And if this happens, it's okay, you can just observe, what's going on. It can also happen that, this session that you only had half an hour for doing this, and now the half an hour is up, and, you have to leave the kind of exploration of the dream and come back later. And you can always do that, you can come back to it later. And you can also work with a different dream. It doesn't matter if it's a new dream or if it's an old dream, because our unconscious is super wise. You can think of the unconscious as kind of like a more intelligent version of yourself. And even just because of the fact that it just contains so much more information than our conscious. So even if you're working, like you left off with this old dream, and then, 2 weeks pass and you work with a new dream, if that issue, was resolved, it won't arise again. But if something was not resolved and it's still in your current life, it's probably going to come up as well. Again, in a dream. And the beauty of starting to understand your symbolic world, your symbolic language, working with dreams, is that, one, just dreams are just a lot of fun to work with, and it's a lot of fun to actually dream. But also, you're going to start noticing these symbols in your life as well. And because they have a meaning to you, or they have a symbolism to you, they're also going to be sort of guidelines, or, or easy ways to integrate or transform certain things beyond just, with the dreams that happen at night, which is really great. And also, as you start training yourself to identify these parts and kind of, explore what they mean and, what this makes you feel, the issues that start happening or arising in your life, or not that start, because we're always encountering issues and difficult things, we're human. When they start coming, you will find that it's much easier to resolve them, and that you have a different capacity for kind of, like picking these things. And I keep doing this because this is kind of what symbolizes to me, like integrating it, or, kind of like expanding the energy and allowing it to just, return to its natural flow. So there are many beautiful benefits of working with dreams. And I also find them an amazing tool, just as I mentioned at the beginning, because they're something that we, or most of us, have access to. So that's one of the ways in which you can work with dreams. If you're somebody who doesn't remember your dreams, there are also things that you can do for remembering them. I won't get too much into it in this video, but it basically has to do with starting to grant value to your dreams. So things, for instance, like placing like a notebook in your bedstand, making a point of, as soon as you wake up, trying to remember them, even if you don't remember them, but having the conscious moment of wanting to remember your dreams, and even saying, before you go to sleep, I will remember my dreams tonight, it starts signaling our unconscious that, that we are that we're finding our dreams important. So it kind of brings, things for us to be able to remember our dreams. And yeah, and that's it. I think dreams are really amazing. I hope this inspires you to start working with your dreams. And yeah, if you are new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Pia. I'm a body mentor, personal therapist, artist, actor. And I have had many experiences throughout my life that I don't necessarily have an explanation for, in a rational sense. So I'm convinced that these experiences beyond the physical are a reality, and that they're completely, accessible to all of us, being them, psychic abilities, spiritual abilities, however you want to call them. I mean, they're different, but however you want to classify them. And my intention with this space and this channel is kind of, several things. Creating a community for all of us to learn more about these, these experiences, and having more tools for, continue to, transform, integrate, grow, you name it. And also to help each other validate these experiences by kind of knowing that, that they are present, and that they happen to other people as well. So yeah, that's it. Have a nice day.